Welcome to Masterclass Wrestling with Class. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share. And now, on with the show.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Masterclass. I'm one of your co-stars, 1/3 of Delirium, the Master Amir, along with my co-star, and the second third of Delirium. Ladies and gentlemen, this is McCallion. That's it, McCallion. No words of wisdom this week. McCallion is just
No words of wisdom. We're gonna be talking a bunch about yeah.
Sorry, you froze a little bit there, McCallion.
Is it cutting out?
You cut out a little bit there, right there, but you're back in now.
Yeah. I seem to. I think yeah.
Okay.
It's a little stormy over here in the catacombs,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah, I forgot
We're
to
getting
go
with
and
a
get him.
tropical bender.
I forgot to go and get him out of the catacombs this week, ladies and gentlemen. Next week he'll be out. But no, it looks like it's
Yeah, I know.
stabilized.
You left me here. I said, hey, aren't we doing this?
Yeah, I forgot about it totally. I had other
All
things on my
right.
mind this week. But I tell you what is on my mind.
We'll be on two different pages for this one, okay?
Yeah, exactly. But I tell you what's on my mind right now, McCallion, is to the viewers out there. Stand with us here at Masterclass. And McCallion.
And you need to go smash that subscribe button in order to show your allegiance, or you will be slayed by society.
That's exactly right. And you don't want to be slayed by society. But I tell you what, someone who has not been slayed by society and who's been,
That's not. I don't think you come back from that.
no, I don't think you will. But someone who has not been slayed by society and who's done very, very well for themselves lately, McCallion. And that's a man you're very familiar with. Right now, he's wrestling as LA Knight in the WWE, Sean Ricker. So, McCallion, tell us about when you
Yeah.
first met Sean. Yeah. Tell us your early dealings with a young LA Knight.
So young LA Knight, if we go off script here and we call him Sean Ricker,
Yeah.
that would have been in the year 2010, I
Mhm.
do believe, is my very first time seeing Sean was him walking into a training session at the old M1W
Okay.
Pro Wrestling out here in Anaheim, California. It was Mach 1 Wrestling. So I think everybody was on the apron that day. We were getting ready to run some spots, and in walks Sean Ricker, which he no different, even though this was about 15, 16 years ago. He was built like a house.
Yeah.
Comes in with stunning good looks and
Yeah.
his charismatic charm, and he's just like, "Hey guys, I'm here. Let me just get some shorts on and put my wrestling shoes on." And it just was like, "Oh no, who's this guy?" Um, right away, you could tell Sean knew what he was doing. You could tell that like he wasn't new to wrestling. You come to find out that he used to live with John Moxley over
Oh,
there
really?
in, I want to say, could be wrong. I want to say Cincinnati, Ohio. I think they lived together in Ohio.
Okay.
Um, I know that Sean is from Maryland, but I think they were living together in Ohio, and they had lived together, I think, for a few years. Was Moxley
Hmm.
and Sean. Sean went through a he went by a couple different names during that time. He was one of his names was Dick Rick. Good thing he probably didn't keep that one.
Yeah.
And then also Sean Ricker.
Yeah.
Sean Ricker was what he wrestled for under Dave Marquez with the Championship Wrestling umbrella.
Yeah.
They ended up teaming him in short time. They teamed him with Brian Cage. At
Mhm.
that time, Brian had just been let go by development. I
Oh,
want to
yeah.
say Brian was down in Florida Championship Wrestling, FCW, for the earlier days
Mhm.
of WWE when they had the multiple development system, OVW, FCW, and DSW, Deep South Wrestling, right? Yeah, I think Deep
Mhm.
South. So I'm pretty sure Brian was from Brian was living up in NorCal or had moved back to NorCal from Florida. So Dave saw the perfect opportunity to put two guys who were just put together like statues.
Yeah.
And he put them together, and their name was Natural Selection.
Natural
And
selection.
being
That's
new
good.
into the business at that point, about a year or two in, and you just became a fan of them. Like I was an immediate fan of them.
Yeah.
Still, just getting my bearings down in the business. And these two guys have already been working, for numerous years at that time.
What was
Definitely
what?
it was a fun time to be around them. I got to work them a few times.
Yeah. What was Sean like
Go
on a
ahead.
what was Sean like on a personal level?
So Sean is like, Sean takes some time. I think Sean knows this, and Sean's heard it from enough people. If Sean ever heard this, Sean takes some time to get to know you, and you get to know Sean.
Mhm.
So Sean can rub people the wrong way just because of who he is as a person. Nothing rude, and also he's East Coaster. East Coasters definitely have a different personality type than the West Coast. Over here on the West Coast,
Yeah.
which he came. Yeah. So Sean definitely he's funny guy, like very super funny, just as he is on TV. But he's more of a quiet. I think he only lets certain people
Hmm.
close to him. He's
Hmm.
not someone who just lets everybody in.
Hmm.
You have to work a little bit and maybe show your true colors to
Hmm.
get close to Sean in life for him to have trust in you.
Do
Um,
do you know
so
do you
over
know
that time period, I got to know Sean.
Sorry, we got a little bit of delay there.
Go ahead.
I was gonna
We're at a little lag right now,
yeah.
so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, thanks to the weather. So I was gonna say, do you know what he was doing outside of the
Yeah.
business? Did he have another career that he was doing? Was it what work kind of work was he doing to support himself? Do you
Yeah.
remember?
So I mean, I don't know, Sean. Yeah, Sean. I think Sean wouldn't mind if I met. So he was actually working at like it serves me correctly, my memory. I think it was the old spaghetti factory at
Okay.
one point. Sean was also doing always on point with trying to do commercials, which you will see Sean in numerous commercials, and
Yeah.
you'll see that pop up in memes and reels on Facebook. Like here was Sean. He had a TV segment on that one police academy show
Oh,
where
okay.
it was like a number. I think the name of the show was like a number, like something 50 or something like that.
Oh,
He had a segment on that show. He
okay.
was in a variety of grocery store commercials, and then he also played that character on The Rock show, that show that The Rock was on,
Hmm.
where it was The Rock, and he had like it was a reality show. Sean was
Okay.
cast on that as well.
Okay.
And let's not forget, Sean did have a run in development as well.
Oh,
Sean was
that's
in
right.
development much way before he was employed by WWE in his current run.
That's right, he did. So, he must have risen pretty fast when you first met him there in Anaheim. Did he? So, do you know how many years he'd had under his belt training by that time if he was already working with John Moxley?
I want to say 5 or 6, I
Okay.
think is the years he was already in the business, like already working, shows. Training was he just was paying dues, showing up to training,
Yeah.
showing himself, as worth for Mach 1.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Now, did you get a chance to work with him directly in the ring at that time?
I did. I got to work Sean, I think 4 separate occasions. I got to work him and Brian as natural selection, during the Mach 1 early NWA. This was early NWA, Dave Marquez version days, championship wrestling. And then I also wrestled um, Sean, I think, on 2 occasions in quick, like squash match fashion,
Hmm.
also for championship wrestling.
Now, do you think you could honestly say to yourself you knew this guy was going to be a star the moment you saw him?
Yes, absolutely, especially within the first year or two.
Yeah.
Still to this day, like, and they both nailed it. I just knew meeting Sean and Scorpio Sky that these two were going to be just stars. Like they
Yeah.
just had all the makings, all the ability. They're good looking guys. They carry themselves with a good high confidence level. but also approachable. I
Yeah.
was lucky enough. I feel lucky enough that I got to become friends with both of them over time,
Yeah.
just being in the same rounds and working the same venues and everything.
Yeah.
Uh, but to see them both succeed, I said I knew that. I knew.
Yeah.
Now it's not like they did not have it easy, what I mean. And we will go into Sean's venture here. They did not have it easy, but they were cut out for this business.
So let's talk about that then, because we often see the positive side of pro wrestling, and once you've succeeded, we see that everywhere in the movie business and everything. So tell us some of the pitfalls that Sean would have faced, some of the struggles. Did you ever see him at any points where he was on the verge of quitting and giving up or anything like that? Share some of that.
Yeah, so I think Sean just he had all the makings, but there to my understanding, there might have been a couple people internally he rubbed the wrong way, and I think that held him back
Hmm.
because he has the height, he has the looks, he has the speaking ability, the work rate, everything's there. It's just I think for him at that point it's like why am I not connecting? Like what is it that's not getting me to the big dance? And
Hmm.
and if you followed his career or someone wants to look up his career, his big breakout moment was TNA.
Yeah.
TNA is where he made his name eventually after Dave's, and Marquez always, his should always be recognized.
Yeah.
Championship wrestling, as I would say to anybody, and as I do say to anybody, the quality footage you get there, since it is a television program shot for television, is the best footage that you can give out to any company that
Hmm.
gives you a contract. The only issue Dave has is that he's never been able to land that big television deal. It's
Hmm.
sad, but Dave has all the makings for it. And like, the prayers are still there that it happens for Dave. I want it to happen for Dave.
Hmm.
And I want it to happen for the cast that's stuck, solely by Dave, which I
Hmm.
would say, hey, me and Peter Avalon are at the top of that list.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so Sean did that, and then Sean got picked up by TNA, and TNA switched his name to Eli Drake.
Yeah.
Eli Drake
Yeah.
is what he performed under TNA. And
Yeah.
if you watched his career in TNA, you saw his charisma, you saw his undeniability as a top performer. So that's why they used him, I feel like, to the fullest extent there. And he became, TNA World Champion.
Yeah, and he was also part of a team, if correct me if I'm wrong, with Drew McIntyre and who was the third guy? Was it Chris Masters? I think it was
And
three of them, right?
Tongaloa.
Tungaloa, yeah.
Yeah,
All three are
Tongaloa.
in
They were
WWE.
called the future, or the Rising. I think it was the Rising.
Yeah, yeah,
Was their stable name. And
yeah.
I don't know. That was a different time period for Sean at that moment. But Sean did some really big things. I felt like Sean's feud with Austin Aries was really good. Sean had the work with Chris Masters
Yeah,
during his time as Chris Adonis
yeah.
in or I think that was sorry. I think I'm speeding up a little bit. That was NWA.
Oh yes,
So
yes,
let's
end of
shift
it.
focus here. Once Sean's time came to an end in TNA, he ended up moving to NWA, and then
Right.
NWA is where I believe they paired, Eli Drake with Chris Adonis.
Yeah, yeah, it was. It was a great time. But I want to go back a little bit because we can't move on without mentioning the fact that Sean was managed by one of the greats, Percy Pringle, aka Paul Bearer. So were you around
You're
at that
right. You're
time?
right. So,
We,
yes, so I was lucky enough to have multiple dinners and meals with Percy Pringle. And it was funny at the time, Percy liked me, and Percy would always call me upper body. I was a slow leg grower. I feel like my legs are on par now, but
yeah.
back then maybe I didn't hit them as hard. So Percy would always tell me, "Hey there, upper body. What a beautiful specimen from the waist up." And so he really put into my head, man, I really need to train legs very hard.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Percy, William Moody, he was a great human being. He had such a knack for the business. Um, actually, inside story that people wouldn't know is that Dave Marquez was the one that aligned, Percy with with Sean, but his original idea was to align Percy with natural selection,
Okay.
with Cage and Ricker. And Cage just he wasn't having it. He didn't feel he didn't want a manager. He wanted to talk as much as the next guy.
Wow.
So I guess they did a promo and Percy sent them out, and hit his closing line. And then Brian snapped back in with another line. And
Mhm.
afterwards, Percy was like, "What the hell was that?" Like because he wasn't supposed to finish up. Percy was going to finish up.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, it didn't work out with the natural selection being managed by Percy. So they ended up having Brian in a short little culmination. They had Brian feud with Sean,
Yeah.
and Sean was the one that stayed prominent with Percy, while Brian went on to do other things.
Yeah.
Um, and that was the breaking up of natural selection. Sean went on to win, I believe, the Heritage Championship
Yeah.
with the help of with the aiding of Percy Pringle by his side as his
Yeah.
manager.
What an amazing feather in his cap. I mean, this is the guy who took the Undertaker. I mean, arguably a huge component of the Undertaker's career. To have him working alongside him. And I've had the opportunity to go back and look at some of the tapes. Tremendous chemistry they had, and a tremendous switch for Percy. I mean, for Moody to be able to go from being Paul Bearer to that to working with Sean,
Yep.
and
Yep.
he worked with him until his passing. And of course, then Sean did a tribute to Percy.
He was very comfortable. I think both of them were comfortable with each other, but I know that Percy was very comfortable with Sean, and he saw that Sean one day would make a name for himself in WWE, at the top, like let's just say the grandest stage. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that Sean did get that opportunity, and
yeah,
it wasn't a missed opportunity,
yeah,
which we see sometimes in the world of wrestling. It was, it's a sad that Percy wasn't around to be able
mm,
to witness it, or ever have an on-screen cameo with LA Knight, which would have been cool because,
yeah,
Percy was WWE for life.
yeah,
But yeah, it was all a cool. I was still a youngin at the time, but it was such a cool moment to be able to be linked up to such a legendary character or figure.
yeah.
It's weird. Like my mind doesn't even go to that. You unlock that box in my mind to think, yeah, oh, that's right. I used to have, dinners with Percy Pringle,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. It's a
But yeah,
wild.
it
Yeah.
was,
Yeah,
yeah.
totally wild. But then, moving on, obviously, one of his greatest runs was actually in the NWA. This was at a time when wrestling was becoming extremely popular again. AEW was launching. Billy Corgan had taken back over the Georgia studios of the original NWA WCW programming, and Eli Drake was one of the headliners there. And I think he really got a chance during that to really open up and show a little bit more of himself to that bigger audience. He had some great feuds there. Were you still in communication with him when he went to the NWA?
Yeah, so Sean still lived in California. So I still would see Sean a few times a year. Sean actually was known for throwing some super cool holiday parties.
Okay.
So there was Halloween, 4th of July. I don't think he did Christmas, no. 4th of July, Halloween, and New Year's. Almost every year I would go to Sean's parties for like maybe 7, 8 years. He did that. And it's a crazy story because when he originally started doing his parties, very few people would show up just because, like I said, he's hard to get close to.
Yeah.
Um, but then as his popularity grew, oh my God, bro, like you would have celebrities showing up, you'd have all these ex-WWE stars showing up. You had just everyone in the neighborhood would show up. They would tell a friend. And Sean doesn't turn people away. He's not an a-hole, so he just opens his door to them. But now you'd have all these people, in his house, and then the cops would come, shut it down,
Yeah.
and then you'd be like, okay, okay, we'll be quiet, and then as an hour goes by, everybody there turn the tunes back up, like,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden, no, we're shutting it down, so that
Right.
happened multiple occasions towards the end.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I still got to see Sean, and it was one of those things where Sean was at the point of saying, I don't know if I've reached the top of my um, I don't know if I've reached the top of my, height in wrestling, and if I should just move on from this or I should just continue with this.
Hmm.
So I don't know the exact source that happened, but I think Sean had reached out to, I believe, William Regal or someone over there at WWE, and just touched base with them after his NWA, during his time in NWA,
Hmm.
and someone touched back with him like, yeah, we're interested now,
Hmm.
again.
Yeah.
And this was from years ago. He was, in development. Um, and I didn't know the scenario, but I would work with Sean. He was always good to me to be one of my like fitness ambassadors for programming that I work outside of wrestling, the jobs that I do,
Okay.
like events and marketing. So Sean was always my go-to guy and would represent any brand I asked of him. Hey, Brad, bro, I got a new energy drink. Hey, I got a water brand. Can you represent it? He's like, yeah, whatever you need. So I'd say, hey, I'm going to give you, a bunch of cases. If you could just take a picture with the bottle, at the gym, blah, blah, blah. He would do it. And like everybody, I would tell everybody, bro, this guy's going to be the next Rock. Like, I'm
Mhm.
serious. Like, I've known him. Yes, he's a friend, but at the same time, I know what he's capable of. If he's given everyone was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, he's a good looking dude. I met up with, I think it was a prime time live a couple years ago.
Mhm.
And Sean had told me that day, hey, man, just so you know, I'm moving to Florida.
Mhm.
And the first thing that goes through your mind is, what's happening in Florida, in this
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
He's not allowed to say. I didn't ask him any different. I just said, "You going to be good over there?" He said, "Yeah, man, I'll be good." He said, "But I'm still, if you're able to hook me up with stuff in Florida, you have a team out there, then I'm still down to, do the ambassador work for you." So I said,
Mhm.
"Awesome, man. Thank you." I think it was 2 or 3 weeks later, watching I believe it was an NXT pay-per-view,
Mhm.
PLE, and all of a sudden you see Sean show up on TV signing the contract,
Mhm.
and they disclose his name as LA Knight.
Yeah.
And that was the moment where it's like, what? And then I reach out to him, text him, and you're like, dude, I can't believe it. Congrats. Da, da, da. And then he was like, yeah, dude, I had to stay quiet about it, but and nothing's concrete until it happens.
Right.
Me and you both know this
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So, until it happens, you stay quiet
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's like otherwise you're going to look like a fool or you're going to chance it, you're going to ruin it.
Yeah.
So his big time to shine was NXT. They rebranded him LA Knight. I don't know the full story on that one. He's
Mhm.
kind of told, a little bit of it,
Yeah.
but it's worked out for him in the long run.
Oh, yeah, definitely, for sure. Now, you mentioned a couple of things there that made me think about his Hollywood ambitions, or, I'm sure he has them still. I mean, now he's doing Slim Jim, snap into a Slim Jim, what the Macho Man originally started in the 90s. Do you see him going that route of The Rock and John Cena eventually?
I think Sean has the caliber of it for sure.
Hmm.
And I think the Slim Jim promotion alone helps open doors and eyes that he has something other than just, wrestling, being wrestler. Already people see the value in him outside of the business, and he has all this predated being on shows and commercials, which if you add that into a reel of, hey, I've been in WWE for numerous years, that definitely helps your chances.
Yeah.
Sean, as you can see, is aging very gracefully. So
Yeah.
I don't feel like age would be something that really like ties him. And we've seen what Batista did, and Batista didn't start his career until a later age of what Sean started.
Right.
And look at where Batista's at, in the industry of,
Yeah.
of Hollywood.
Yeah.
So I think it's not something that's limited. I don't know how high it is on Sean's list of, I just never have asked him, like, hey,
Mhm.
dude, are you looking to transition if possible? I'm sure that knowing Sean, absolutely he would.
Yeah. Now, there's a couple of things you can say he struggled with his career because he certainly has. Like you said, sometimes, well, yeah, he's got the total package. Sometimes, someone who's got a decent look but can't back it up with words, they're dead in the water. He can back it up. But it seems that the odds have been against him several times, even once he was in WWE, because immediately once he debuted on the grand stage, he went against, well, he was actually representing two individuals that you and I don't particularly care for. MXM Collection, yep. When they were in NXT, WWE, and Sean was repackaged as Max Dupree in a role that was similar to a good friend of ours, Rico Constantino. So again, now he's voiced his frustrations with this character. What did you think for Sean when you saw that happen?
Well, I kind of knew I knew who was at the helm of it automatically,
Mm,
and I just felt like it was a very unfortunate situation for Sean to be in, honestly.
yeah, yeah.
I know how hard Sean has worked throughout the years, and even with LA Knight, I don't know for sure, but I'm sure that Sean wasn't really thrilled about the name, but he made that work 1,000%.
Hmm.
And for you to take something that you already branded and change it again,
Yeah,
and this time it's let's just say it's a demotion, it's to demobilize you.
yeah,
Um, like it was just disparaging. I felt terrible for him. Of course, you don't want to rub it in because you already know how someone feels in this business when you watch something like that happen.
yeah,
So the best thing that Sean did was he continued to do,
yeah.
and he did as good as he could with what they gave him and what they're allowing him. And fast forward, fast forward into operations changed, management changed, and it allowed honestly, and Sean has told me this story. I don't think he minds. He's told other people, Chris Van Vliet, it saved his career,
Yeah.
So the shift of management made it where he survived a terrible, tsunami storm, a
Yeah.
storm in the ocean.
Yeah.
And with that being said, him and MXM, not that he didn't do it great, but they just weren't a fit for one another.
Right.
And bringing in Maxine, which is great that Maxine's still going and she's fantastic and
Mm.
she's a great human being. I've met her before, but it's the thing was they brought her in because I feel like they had no idea what they were doing
Hmm.
with that whole group and what they were casting and what they were trying to get out of it.
Yeah.
Uh, but at least the good thing was she got advanced up to the main roster because they needed someone to fill this sister role for Max, and he got his name back.
Yeah.
So, she's now getting the training, the proper training, as you've seen her come along in recent months over the past year that she can work full matches. When they hired her, she had no wrestling experience, They
Hmm.
just hired her solely for, I'm sure, her appearance.
Hmm.
So, in the hindsight, everything they wanted to happen just didn't transpire and
Hmm.
it ended up going the right way. So he
Yeah.
stuck it out, and that's the important part.
Now, let's think about this in terms of a producer standpoint. Now, you yourself get to work as a producer in a way, creative in pro wrestling. I've been a writer, I've worked as a producer for Hollywood. So I understand about characters and storytelling and all of that. We both do. What do you think the idea was to take LA Knight out of the equation, get him out of the ring, and make him Max Dupree? Do you see any logic in that whatsoever?
So all I could say is, from having limited time in producing, but knowing, production in general, um, if the person above you, which is usually the director or booker, the talent director,
Mhm.
if they tell you this is what you're working with and this is where I want it to go, your goal, your job is to get it to go
Yeah,
to what the end is that they're trying to do. Your hands are essentially tied. If you
yeah,
don't like someone's name, you don't like their music, you don't like the whole gist of it, you as the producer don't have much say because the director is directing the producer to produce.
got it.
And I think someone's hands were tied that, the whoever was working with Sean at that time, and it came from the man above,
Hmm.
and he said, this is the direction of where we're going with this.
Yeah,
And I think the end was just a kiln. I think it was for honestly, it was for Sean to burn,
yeah,
and that's a sin because when you look at what he's already done in the short, 5 years he's been there, it's phenomenal. But
yeah,
at the same time, you could have castrized someone's career as we've seen many times over with
yeah.
guys that just, that had it but
Hmm.
just weren't selected. They weren't the one.
The good thing with LA Knight, the good thing with what Sean has done is he fought back so hard with the LA Knight gimmick. It's so over. He's done such a, I mean, I think he should be even higher up the ranks than what he is right now, in my opinion. I think he should definitely be in the main event picture. But he fought back so hard. It's almost like
If
that.
it was crowd reaction, if it was crowd reaction based, Sean would have become heavyweight champion last year. That's for certain.
Yeah.
If it's on logical terms basing of where they have you placed and where they want you to go, Sean still was able to break barriers with that and went higher than I think what they had planned for him.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly. And right now, I think everything's coming together for him even more so in the past year. I've noticed now, even this new thing. It's just a little thing, but I pick up on these things. I noticed his ring boots now. He's wearing different colored soles on the end of the boots. This is a side tangent here.
So
But
funny story about that.
yeah.
Funny story about that is that so Sean has an immersed shoe collection,
Okay.
and he is very big into Air Jordans or selective shoes. He has Timberland boots and everything else. Um, he he always did this on the indies as well. He would get his boots designed like his sneakers.
Okay.
So I don't know who his boot guy was, but he would take his favorite pair of shoes, send them to the guy, and say, "I want the boots to look like this." So
Yeah.
those ones that he wore with like the blue purple, like
Yeah.
he has them shoes. I've seen him wear them shoes. They just sit in his room.
Yeah.
But then he had them turned into boots. So they're actual wrestling boots, but
Yeah.
shortened height wise, and then they're fully customized to have the soles of what
Yeah.
looks very different than what most people, boots are one of the harder things to customize,
Yeah.
because you got to find a good person who does it.
Yeah, yeah. I do remember I had a conversation with Tatanka years back because I was asking him about his boots, and I was curious if the same guy who was doing the Warriors boots was making Tatankas. And lo and
Because of
behold,
the tassels.
yeah, it was the same
Yeah,
guy. Boots, I think, presentation, as you and I discuss, is 9/10 of everything in pro wrestling. And I think,
absolutely.
looking at Sean, to me, he's the exact definition of what a pro wrestler was in the 80s and 90s. He's definitely got the total package as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely. That was the one thing that with starting training out here in California for the most part, doing my whole journey, and then having Sean always close by because, he moved out here. Sean was always someone for me to look up to, regardless if he was a friend or he was, the opponent for the night. I looked at Sean and I said, there's no way they can turn down a guy like this who is literally every making of a pro wrestler. And he has the charm in life, regardless if he's doing a job he doesn't love or he's in a situation where he was carless many times. Sorry, Sean. But he made it work
Yeah.
and he always kept that charm and he didn't put it on you because he was in a bad situation. He
Mhm.
dealt with the situation. So
Yeah.
it's great for me to be able to get to run into him now at the shows when I get to work them, Raw and SmackDown this past that just came. I
Yeah.
got to see Sean at both of them because they flew him up to San Jose for Raw, and then he was down obviously in San Diego for SmackDown, his home show. It was good to be able to see and catch up with him and just see that he got the rightful respect and observation that he deserved.
Yeah. What I do like about his story as well, because it's very inspiring to anybody out there who's looking to get into the pro wrestling business or any business in life. It's not, you're never an overnight success. And Sean is perfect proof of that. It has taken him, like you said, you met him in 2010. That's 15 years ago. He'd already been
Yeah.
training for what you said, 5 years approximately, you
5 or 6 years, yeah, already
reckon?
working shows.
So that's 21 years. That's a long
And that's
time.
what I think. I think the numbers add up. I think he has been doing it for around 20 plus years. You'll hear him say that even on other podcasts and on TV. And as you said, with the wholesomeness of what Sean, it's crazy because you said there is no overnight success, but Sean is looked at by some fans as an overnight success
Mhm.
because they didn't watch him throughout his whole career.
Right.
They maybe didn't tune in to TNA or NWA. But like when you hear someone like Wade Barrett, who was over there during his time in NWA as Stu Barrett. I want to say it was Stu Barrett. No, Stu.
Bennett. Was it
Stu
Bennett?
Bennett, yes.
Yep.
Stu Bennett over there in NWA, he knew that Sean had all the He got to call Sean stuff there. And then now, you flip the script, they're both back with WWE, and he gets to call. If you ever notice when Barrett is on, commentary for a LA Knight segment, he's off the chains.
Yeah.
He puts him over like no other because he knew over there that this guy needs the biggest stage to capitalize on. Stu Barrett, he knows talent. During his time and working with all the big names he worked with, he can spot as we can. When you're in the business long enough, you can spot out who has it and who doesn't
Yeah.
just by seeing someone
Yeah.
for a momentary amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things we're going to talk on when we come back after a few words here, McCallion, is the physique. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into a little bit of that stuff. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a little pause to hear a word from our brand new partner and sponsor. We'll be back in about 55 seconds. Champions. They're not born in the gym. It starts from the inside and it works its way out. Do you feel it more difficult to obtain muscle? Are you tired or perhaps depressed? Then there's a solution. Our brand new partner and sponsor, Care Aesthetics of La Quinta, are here to help you get restored to optimal health. Just use the contact information in this video and schedule your free consultation. Be sure to mention the name of the podcast, whether that be Power and Glory, Styling, Masterclass, or Hey Roma, when doing so. We wish you all the best in your road to optimized health. And now, back to the show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back there. That was just a word from our brand new sponsor and partner, Care Aesthetics of La Quinta. So we're talking about bodies, and if you need help with your hormones, if you're looking to get in shape and maybe you're having some difficulties, we definitely urge you to get in contact with them and make sure that you mention that you are watching Masterclass. It's very, very important. Okay, so McCallion, we were just talking about the physique. So I mean, obviously, this is something that's very important to LA Knight. It's been part of his career. So, did you get to train with him, work out with him in the gym?
Now that I think about it, me and Sean were in the same LA Fitness a couple different times, but we never worked out together. No, we just had different training regimens, I'm sure. It was like, there's those training, I say training partners, training friends that you go to the gym with. You will walk into the gym with, scan your tag, and you both go do your separate things.
Yeah.
And then you will have those people that you train with directly, and you guys will get stuff done. If someone like Sean, as you can tell, I've never seen Sean out of shape,
Yeah.
only in photos, which I think they're just fake.
Mhm.
When he was a child, where Sean was not that big as a child, should not be that big.
Yeah.
Anytime I knew Sean when I first met Sean, he was built like the god that he is today.
Yeah.
This is definitely Sean in Super Saiyan 4 form right now. But Sean honestly looks his very best at his current time
Yeah.
in WWE right now. But Sean has always been in fantastic shape.
What is he in person? What is he? Is he 220, 240? What is his size in real life, as it were?
I would say, yeah, I would say he's definitely around like a 230. I'll tell you, from the early days of Sean, back in the day, Sean used to bring a jug of whole milk, a full gallon of milk,
Mhm.
and just drink it throughout a wrestling show. That's the dedication
Yeah.
that that's some old school
Yeah.
mentality. Sean would show up with a jug of milk, a full gallon, and
Wow.
just be sipping on it throughout the show. You go
Yeah.
over the match, you'd see what he's doing. He'd still have some food, but he just was sipping on the whole milk, whole milk.
Wow. Wow.
Um,
That's definitely
yeah,
old school, man.
Sean did that's
That's
old
old
school,
school.
man. Sean was following the old regimen of how you live large.
Yeah. It reminds me because actually a gentleman we're both familiar with, Rock Riddle. he was telling me the same thing. Back then when they wanted to bulk up, because nowadays we turn to protein powders, creatine, and all that. He said no, it was whole milk, and he would
Yeah.
drink, like you said, a whole gallon,
Whole gallon.
whatever, whole gallon of milk a day.
Yeah.
Incredible. Unfortunately, nowadays, everybody out there, be careful of what dairy products you're picking up because a lot of them are filled with atrocious chemicals,
Yeah. True.
estrogen promoting, and you don't want your estrogens going up, especially if you're a guy. If you're a female, that's a different story,
Yeah, that's your own accord, okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
But,
I want to go back to the milk thing. The only thing that ever grossed me out was that when the milk would just sit there
oh
for
yeah.
half the day and then he would just pick it back up and drink some more. And I'm like, that is warm milk. You are literally, that is nasty.
Yeah.
But he did it, no chocolate, no nothing. He just downed it. He was a warrior.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's definitely paid off now, all these years later. Do you think we'll see him again? This is just a hypothesis. Do you think we'll see him world champion in the next 2 years? What does your gut tell you?
I can hope so. Right now, it seems like they bumped him out of the title contingency. Just watching, observing,
Mhm.
that you can see that they have a lot written. It seems like for the, but once in a while, the fans can take over and change the trajectory of
Yeah.
where the storyline's going. So I would say, if anything, maybe if they switched Sean to Raw and they had LA Knight on Raw, there would be a higher chance of him maybe taking the world title.
Hmm.
I feel like the WWE title right now is kind of just always in some kind of ongoing, it feels like a video game storyline, that's always very convoluted and something that's like, that no one's going to be coming in and taking the title with ease type
Hmm.
thing. Right now it's Cody. Now they just did the John Cena heel turn. Those things are like major wrestling, it's not like they can have someone this I think that was the issue with when Sean was at his biggest. They didn't want him coming in there taking the WWE championship from Roman, but they
Hmm.
didn't have a world title at that time. The world
Right.
title was consumed by Roman. Roman had both the belts.
Yeah.
So you didn't have an additional world championship for the other guys that were deserving,
Mhm.
but you already had a storyline that was predestined, written out. So at Sean at his greatest height, when he went over to um, Saudi Arabia and
Mhm.
worked Roman Reigns in the main event, they couldn't have him win that
Yeah.
because the story is not finished, and Sean was just like a bonus character added in.
Hmm.
Um, so we could just hope that with the world title's freedom, that it does change hands more often, that maybe Sean's popularity will push him into contingencies for that.
Yeah. Now that's the topic we're going to jump into now. Now, initially, we had thought we were going to cover two individuals on this episode, but I'm looking at the time, so we'll have to leave the next one till next week. But nonetheless, we'll continue with Sean here, and we'll go into Monday Night Raw. Let's start talking about what's current now, and we'll keep coming back and forth with Sean. But so it seems like last week I saw SmackDown. SmackDown is now laden with all the big players, the power players. I don't know what the idea behind that move is because now Netflix is kind of thin. Wouldn't you agree?
I would say that Netflix originally requested certain people to be on the show. I think they fulfilled obligations by having them appear on the show. I don't think WWE has changed their trajectory on what they want to do
Mhm.
overall in the company. So maybe just filling them in as like guest appearances is kind of subsiding what the networks need or
Mhm.
want. The
Yeah.
difference, I will say, the difference between Raw and SmackDown is Raw has no definitive runtime. So if they want
Right.
to go 2 hours, they can go two. If they want to go three, they can go three. If they want to go 2 hours and 40 minutes,
Mhm.
the commercials too are also WWE oriented commercials. So when you see the commercials run, it's either a direct sponsor or another WWE event, like something
Mhm.
like live events or pushing merchandise.
Mhm.
With SmackDown, you're still on network television,
Yeah.
so they're on the USA Network and they have to fit their time, their allotted time. They have to have full commercial blocks, which actually minimizes the on-screen time, even
Mhm.
though they've extended that time to the 3 hours. And I've heard
Mhm.
the 3 hour block has been crunching a lot of people backstage. So it eventually will go back to a 2 hour block. I think with that 3 hour block is why they're using these monumental stars, maybe giving them a 30, 45 minute segment because
Yeah.
you have an additional hour of kill time on
Yeah.
that program.
Yeah, very true. I did notice one thing in Netflix this week, and that was the Chad Gable vignette. Very Lucha Underground-esque, I think. So we'd heard rumors about this, that potentially with Netflix you could do more that kind of storytelling, and they finally pulled the trigger on that this week. What did you think of that vignette, Chad Gable?
I'm wondering where they're going with it. What did he receive? I would
Yeah,
think it's a mask, like, but what does the mask represent? You can't go wearing someone else's mask because you're not him.
right.
So is he just going to put on a mask? Is that going to water down Gable if you give him a mask? If it gives him a certain singlet, like some other, I don't know where they're going with it. I liked it. I saw people online say that they thought it looked very NXT or like you said, Lucha Underground. So they
Mhm.
were thinking it was beneath the height of what a Raw segment would be. I think it's unique if it concludes with something big.
Mhm.
Um, Not sure exactly where they're going with it because the box indicated he saw what he knows will change, where he's going with this.
Yeah.
So I just feel like it's a mask. I don't know what else
Yeah.
it could be
Yeah.
in a box.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like it's probably a mask. Cinematically, I think it was done well. I think it was it was
Shot
done.
well, great
Yeah.
lighting, great yeah,
Yeah.
wherever I like the outside. It was obviously like a gas station or 7-Eleven, probably in a local town. Felt like California.
Yeah.
But that they shot that thing with the other people, random people, but
Yeah.
it was very well done.
Yeah. Very, very well done. Something else that was very well done, that it's hard to distinguish whether it was a work or a shoot, was the second pipe bomb from CM Punk this week. Now that was something else. I was not expecting that. Now, your initial gut reaction, do you think Punk was venting there, or do you think that was perfectly okayed, greenlit? Just gut reaction, truthful, spectator reaction.
I think it was greenlit. I honestly feel like Punk is at a different level of his career now, and although you do have some people on the other side right now seeking vengeance for Punk's, previous work history, uh, to what I've heard and what I experienced myself, Punk is on a different level of how he treats the business, how he treats other people.
Yeah.
I witnessed that myself. The first guy to shake my hand when I was there on Raw was CM Punk, like just
Yeah.
because we were in the same corridor together. But, he didn't need to do it, and he
Yeah.
did. I don't know if the Punk of old would have done that kind of stuff, would be
Mhm.
that way. So I honestly think he got okayed for it and
Mhm.
just did it in his fashion. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things that definitely blurs lines
Mhm.
because you know him for that.
Yeah.
So, and especially when he dropped the line like both you bald,
Yeah.
whatever's, about Cena's bald spot. Like I was like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
very clever, touching on, like
Yeah.
breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, yeah, definitely he did. And speaking of Cena, now obviously everyone is, I mean, he's the hot topic in pro wrestling. This had shades of the NWO in '96 written all over it. But the big question is going to be, what is Cena going to look like now? Because, he honestly, I mean, in my opinion, McCallion, he can't come out there wearing the shorts, especially at his age now. He's matured. He's a heel now. They've got to change him completely, don't you think?
I'm wondering about it because what would be more heelish than just him continuing to wear the same attire, never give up, but he
Yeah.
gave up, If they go and alter it, like think like when NWO spray painted, the logo or whatever, it just kind of screams like I knew this was coming. I was gonna do this,
Yeah.
but like rebellions, But I think in hindsight, you're rebelling more when you don't change your when you don't so I for one I don't see his music changing unless they do something that's from um who was that came out there with them, Travis Scott.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I wasn't familiar with that
It was
guy. Yeah, fill
um,
me in on that guy. I wasn't
yeah,
familiar with that.
the name is I'm blanking on it right now. I think it was Travis Scott.
Yeah.
When he came out there, maybe he could do something. I feel like Cena's song would still open with the regular, opening. That
Whatever it was.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I was not going to attempt it right now, and and, and then maybe go into that. It's such a weird transition at the point that Cena's career is going to close, and
Yeah.
this is the moment that they're doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe Rock was like, "Hey, dude, I'm doing it too, and it's really cool. You should try it out."
Yeah.
Whatever, or if it was more they pushed for Cena to do it. I read that he did his last Make a Wish an hour before they went live on Raw that night. So he went to a dying child's
Mhm.
potentially child that's going has a lifelong illness. Um, and he made that wish as he's done over 500 times, I believe, for children throughout the years and more wishes than anybody granted. And they said after that wish, he knew that he would not be doing any more wishes.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, like that was the main thing. You would say, hey, if the other guy was in charge, this would have never happened. It couldn't have happened
Yeah.
because that his superhero popularity is what was bigger than the business, and
Yeah.
usually nothing's bigger than the business.
Yeah.
So because that person wasn't there to, aid this, someone else or himself stepped in and said, I want this challenge.
What is truly remarkable, it's sometimes hard to believe that Cena has been going for as long as he has because, we've talked about before, like the 80s was defined, the 90s was defined, the 2000s to now, it's kind of been a blur. Nothing has really been definitive. There's no change in music, not really a change in anything. You can't say, oh, that was the 2010s and that was the 20 teens. Everything's been pretty much the same. So it's just
Yeah.
hard to believe that Cena now has been doing this since 2002. He still seems, it's not like when Hogan, so let's just use that as an example. When Hogan changed in 96, it really felt like from 1989 to 1996 that like 20 years had gone by. That's how long the stretch felt. This
And
doesn't feel.
I feel like the reason being
Mhm.
is that Cena's career kind of wrapped up a couple years ago, like 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And then, if they would have pulled this while he was consistently there,
Yeah.
let's just say when he was consistently there, maybe took 1 year off, and then all of a sudden, they did this, that would have made everybody lose their mind because you didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
And even with this time, I would say I didn't really see it coming, except you accepted it more than
Hmm.
what you would have back then.
Yeah.
Back then, you would have closed out that night and you would have been in disbelief for the rest of the week until you saw, Smack, until you seen him again.
Yeah.
You definitely would be just waiting for Raw, Monday, like just to hear what they would say.
Hmm.
I think in the time we're in with the internet, even though it wasn't spoiled beforehand, and which they did a good job,
Yeah.
and I just feel like it's different. Nothing could be the same anymore of what it would have felt like years ago. Like you said with the Hogan incident, there was no internet back then. There was nothing to kind of, even go to other people and ask them unless it was in person. There,
Yeah.
you couldn't go to a message board and see what everyone thinks, and people saying, "Oh, they waited too long to do this," or "Oh, this is great." Da-da-da. It's too much of an opinion-based story now.
Mhm.
So them doing it is cool. It's
Mhm.
definitely going to build a really good WrestleMania, and I think that's the
Yeah.
important part because face Cody versus face Cena just wasn't gonna. It just wasn't gonna. It just would
Yeah.
have been okay, cool. The greatest of all time versus the guy they're building to be the next, John Cena.
Yeah.
Now it's gonna be like Cody fighting for his life, against management. Which to me, I thought corporation. This feels like the corporation. This
Yeah.
feels like what Vince did back in the day when he
Yeah.
gathered The Rock and Ken Shamrock. He took all these guys that were like meaningful, but not like the greatest, and
Hmm.
that's how you turn them the greatest. Now it's
Yeah.
weird because Rock and Cena are probably the greatest, but
Mhm.
at the same time, them working together is like Doomsday and Thanos. So
Yeah.
now you got two guys that are like major villains, and you need the one superhero like Captain America being Cody to overcome these odds.
Yeah, and no, it is. It's a great story. Some people are saying that this is the greatest story since the NWO. Nothing's ever been like the NWO, and this is it. One thing I picked up on, I don't know if you picked up on this, when Cena did turn, I think it was very visible that there was not misgivings, but there was a certain sadness in his eyes. Because, like you said, he loves working with kids. He loves granting these make a wish. And he knew at that moment, because you saw that look, and he did look evil. I must admit, like when he let his face drop, and he gave that look to the fans. I've never seen his face look like that before. That was, and think, put yourself in that position, McCallion. If you'd have been working with kids for 24 years and you knew now because of your gimmick you couldn't do it and you loved it, it was your passion, you've got to have a sense of sadness. It can't just be all just an act.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I lost an eyeball to move on to a new gimmick, but I totally understand what you're saying. Like I feel like I feel like when I saw him standing there with The Rock always is believable what he does.
Yeah.
The Cena being angry, although he had a scowl on his face that you've never seen before, I still felt like it wasn't natural for Cena. I feel
Hmm.
like this is something that, like you said, he's been good guy, he's been hero. Even
Hmm.
when they booed the heck out of him,
Yeah.
dude, like he still stayed vigilant to being on your side, even if you're
Yeah.
like, you suck, Cena. He's
Right.
still like, that's your opinion.
Yeah.
Thank you, but I'm gonna work hard. Like you're
Yeah.
like this. How do I hate this guy? So
Yeah.
after all those years where the crowd finally said, I don't hate this guy, now it's gonna be like, oh, I hate this guy, like so it's kind of it's a weird thing, but I guess it's necessary. I hope that he's not just seen a bad guy. I hope he goes all in. I
Yeah.
hope he does change his appearance. I hope he does go full heel, cuts a promo. I hope he degrades the audience.
Mhm.
Otherwise, if he says something like, well, if Cody wasn't going to take it, I'll take the opportunity. But I don't like that. Not
No.
enough. It's not deep enough. I
Yeah.
want it to be, you go, you know what? I came back for the sole reason of winning my 17th championship. Nothing's going to stop me. I don't care about a Cody Rhodes. I
Right.
beat you years ago when you're a rookie. I'll beat you now when I'm a legend.
Yeah.
Like keep it going like that, where
Yeah.
you're pretty much degrading Cody and
Yeah.
everything he's done over the past 3 years, and you're just putting yourself up. That's some major heel status.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. You got to do that. If he's not all in, it's not going to be worth it.
That's it. That's it.
He's
You
got
need
to,
to really make the people quench from that. They need to really go, I seethingly don't like this guy anymore.
yeah.
I can't believe he did. Obviously this is wrestling, so we know it doesn't go further than the arena,
Mhm.
but you need to give the people the true story, like so they can believe it. You believe what you see. It's with movies. Every movie we watch is fake, but we
Yeah.
always talk and reference movies
Yeah.
because what we saw was what we believed when we watched it. We knew we went into a theater to watch a screen.
Yeah. You've got to take your audience on an emotional ride, and they've got to
That's
be
it.
with you on it. If they're not with you on it, you failed and they don't care. So it's going to
Yeah.
be very interesting to see. I think WrestleMania is going to be phenomenal this year. I can honestly say, like I said, for me, wrestling has had its highlights in the past 25 years, but this is a big one. This one is on par with the NWO. We're going to close up. We're going to go back to Sean just to close this one out. So, who do you think his greatest feud has been? Greatest series of matches? What do you think his greatest highlight has been thus far in his entire career?
Honestly, entire career. I feel like his best moments probably were showcased in TNA. He had some really good feuds. When you watch his promos there, when he did the button and he had, he's like, yeah, yes, huh, dummy. That kind of stuff was super funny. It was like South Park oriented styled, with the mouth would drop down. But I would say his WWE run. Although, like he hasn't had long-term feuds. His match at WrestleMania last year, I texted him after that one and I said, "Dude, you killed it. Amazing job." And he was taken back by. He's like, "You really think so?" And I said, "Absolutely." I'm not saying that to toot your horn because the year before he was out here during WrestleMania weekend and they didn't book him, because it
Mm,
was under different management. And he wasn't used, even though he was at his hottest. And they were in Los Angeles, LA, and they
yeah.
didn't use him on the program. So the next year, where they were, which I forget, where was that? Texas, maybe?
Uh,
They booked him in a
yeah.
in the United States title match, or no, was it Florida? Maybe it was Florida.
Or was it New Orleans? New
And they
Orleans?
booked him in the
Yeah.
U.S. title match with Logan Paul.
Yeah. I thought it may have been New
Maybe it was.
Orleans.
Maybe that was. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe so.
Yeah.
And then that's where he won his first major championship on the main roster. But I would say my favorite feud that he had, if you wanted to watch it and like someone wanted to watch something really funny and it was transitionally good, was LA Knight versus Cameron Grimes, Trevor Lee in NXT for the $1 million championship. That
Oh, yeah.
feud was phenomenal. And that was the first belt that Sean had, technically won under
Yeah.
WWE umbrella.
Yeah.
Um, was the $1 million belt, which they brought back just for him. So when you look
That's
at the people
right.
that held the $1 million belt, I think it's just been three of them, and
Yep.
that's Ted DiBiase,
Yep.
or technically four, Virgil, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and LA Knight.
Yeah, pretty remarkable. I can't believe we forgot about that. Yep, he had the $1 million championship too. Yeah, I think, he's on the way to great things. I think he's a tremendous performer, and I hope one day that he does get to be the world's heavyweight champion, but only time will tell. But I think that brings us to a close this week, McCallion. As I did say to everybody, we were going to discuss another individual, which is Nick Aldis. But we ran out of time, so next week we'll
Yeah.
dive into the career. Yep. Next week, next. Oh, quickly, what does LA Knight mean? Do you have any idea what the L and the A stand for?
No, to my understanding, it was just because he was living in Los Angeles at the time. So
Okay.
they just and the LA Knights is a basketball team out here. I think
Yeah, you've got the
LA
LA
Knights.
Knights. I
Yeah.
think I think it
So
is.
I
A
think
baseball.
that's why they just went with that. I don't know who came up with it. I don't know if they said, "Hey, we're going to call you a sports team."
Yeah.
But when I asked him LA, he said Los Angeles. I said, "Got you."
All right. The Los Angeles
Yeah.
Knight. Plus, he can still do the
Yeah.
LA Knight, so he can
And
still
that
do.
was it was very good that you could just copy paste from Eli Drake to
Yeah.
L.A. Knight, and they had him drop dummy just because it's just not nice. But they had him keep yeah, so it was always dummy yeah. He
Yeah.
always did that. He
Yeah.
did that back in the day.
Yeah.
So for that to eventually become his biggest coined
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
that's cool.
It's excellent. Good stuff. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Stand with us. Also, hit the likes and share with your friends and family. We greatly appreciate you sharing a little bit of your time with us. I am your co-star, the Master, and this is my co-star, fellow Delirium member, McCallion. We will see you next week.